Welcome back to the dopest show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer. This is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the stupid stuff I did to get put in prison, also the crazy stuff that happened while I was in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison, want to make some of the same mistakes I made. So, got a few different stories on this, but the most feared man, east to west coast, north to south, all around, without question, is Jody. Half of y'all probably laughing right now. Half of y'all like, well, who's Jody? Okay, Jody is a prison slang term for the guy that's banging your girl when you're in prison. Now, there are plenty of women that do right by their man, and you know that does happen. But also, you've got to look. People who end up in prison, typically, not always, definitely not always, are living a life usually of addiction or crime or something of the sort. Okay. It's a fast life, and when they're removed from that life and the person they were with is still out there, they're probably still moving fast, and somebody's going to swoop in. And then there are people that know that the person went to jail or prison, they swoop in, figure that's their chance. It's happened a number of times, and some of the worst violence I've seen, I would say more than drugs, more than gambling, more than anything else, was from Jody. Guy found out Jody got their girl, and they just say screw it. First person who says something, and one situation in particular really bothers me about that. But it was actually a situation I saw two different places, two different people, at the medium security and at the low security separately. The medium security, it was I was friends with a lot of the Mexicans. My cellie was number 2 for the Pisces, and got along with the amigos. But anyway, the one fella, his cellmate ended up getting out and getting with his girl. Now, he was mad and all the pieces about it, but it wasn't as bad as the other person at the low security. At the low security, there's this fellow named Stevie. Now, Stevie, probably about 45 to 50. He was funny as could be. He was, you know those people that laugh at their own jokes, like that. Like, he was one of those people, but he was actually funny when he told the joke, so it wasn't annoying. And he would go around pranking and doing stuff, and then he'd run away real fast, which was funny because he had a great big round belly, so seeing him try to scatter away after he pranked somebody was funny. And he was always smiling every day. He'd been in prison for like 15 or 20 years. He worked his way down from USP, United States Penitentiary, which is the highest custody, all the way down to the low. I am telling you, the low security was 10 million times better than the medium security. The medium security, especially at Petersburg, was a complete freak show. But second off, at the low security, the guards don't mess with you as much. It's got to be in their training, or it could be because there's no air conditioning. And in the summer, it's the walls literally sweat. I thought that was like an expression or a joke, but they actually beat up water on the wall, like condensation from it. Yeah, and it cooks you. It cooks you. Even when it's like 60, 70 at night, the building retains that heat. And at like 1 a.m., it's still 80, 90 inside the building. The only place that has air conditioner, the guards have it in their office, which, and then the TV rooms, they have air conditioners. So I'd stay in the TV room till like 1 o'clock. And even then, when you open that door, going from the cold air to that heat that's been retained, it's literally 90 degrees. It could be 60 degrees outside, but the building is old and it retains that heat. It would suck the breath out of you. The guards don't search. It's so much nicer. I mean, prison sucks either way, but in terms of living and just everything, the low security is, I can't even explain it. There are no cameras. It's a regular building. You never get locked down. My first 6 months, I drank a lot of tomato wine and cut up, and I like to fight. After that, didn't drink a drop of alcohol the entire rest of my sentence, the other 4.5 years. But I'd be up at 3 a.m. my first 6 months, cooking fried rice, drunk on tomato wine. I did that for 6 months, and then ended up getting in trouble. I said, no. Gotta, get back home to family, and getting your visits, stuff like that taken away. It's no good. I mean, that'll really destroy you on the inside, not being able to see anybody for a year straight. So, for somebody to want to crash test dummy themselves out of there, they have to really be in a desperate place, is my logic here. Because it's so much better. The low is like, I can't even tell you. It's a different world. To crash test dummy yourself out of the low, you have to just say, well, forget life, I'm just going to go out however. And that's what happened to this guy. This guy, Stevie. And everybody loved Stevie. I mean, he was a nice guy. He was funny. He was always, cracking jokes and then laughing that after he did it, which most people who do that are just annoying. But he was funny. What happened was his cellmate, somehow, I think he went to the hole, his cellmate was with him at the medium or something like that. He went to the hole, and when he went to the shoe, this guy called his wife to let him know that he was in the shoe. Somehow they started talking. His cellmate got out, got with his wife. She wrote him a letter, told him, "This is what I'm doing, this is what's up, we're done, I'm with him now," which is just so wrong on so many levels. Like, that's the ultimate worst betrayal on the planet. And Stevie, he changed. Like, that smile, that laugh, he was literally always smiling. He was locked up, but you'd never known that he'd been in there 15, 20 years. He was pranking, having fun every day. Then you just looked at him and his soul looked like it was taken from him. Like, all the life had gone out of him. And it was hard to watch, because you see somebody, somebody that's so fun, so funny, that is a part of the group, that people do what they call bid off certain people. That means that people are entertainment, they're funny, they make the time easier, they make it go by quicker because you laugh. They're comedians, basically. They could be comedians. He could have been one. And he just wasn't the same. It wasn't too awful long after that that he ended up just really taking off and hurting somebody. I believe it was like a lock on a belt, lock on a sock, and he really went a little bit over. No, he went overboard, and he really hurt the guy. He hurt the guy bad. They got him out of there. We never saw him again. Hard to tell where he is, what's up with him, everything else, but people end up like that whenever you don't know. When you are in a building with 1,200 people, or in a compound with 1,200 people, probably 150 people in each unit. But anyway, at the low 1,200, probably 1,800 at the medium. It's a lot of people. 1,800 people, it's a lot of people. You don't know who's had a death in the family that week. You don't know whose wife, whose girl just left them. There's probably a person, every few days that has a situation that if you say the wrong thing to them, you could be subject to extreme amounts of violence just because they want to take it out on somebody. It's something I saw happen over and over again. And a lot of the times the people they took it out on were people that didn't deserve it. They were just looking for a reason to fight. I'll tell you, it took the life out of me too, because I had I had a hussy ex who stole $100,000 over a 5-month period from my mom's business. And I thought I had the perfect thing going. I thought it was a perfect relationship. We'd only been together like a year. And I told her, no, I'm going away. She's like, no, I'll be good. I want to stay with you. And I ended up agreeing to that, which was the worst thing ever. It really hurt my mom's business. Just the relationship. I feel bad about the whole thing because it was such a two-faced, messed up thing. But that sucked the life out of me. And there was a time where I was like crash test dummy. I seen it with a number of people, but I personally experienced it too. Now you talk about karma. Okay, it's so incredibly stupid, the situation that happened, because my hussy ex, am I boring you? She knew my situation with drugs and everything. She decided to try heroin for the first time when I was in prison, and then moved a guy in an apartment with her. Then totaled a car that I think my mom co-signed for the car, installed that money, everything else, and I found it out all at once. Like, imagine one day you think you know your life, you think you've got everything planned, everything's going to go a certain way. The next day, it's just shattered. You're like, everything about my life is a lie. And I'll tell you, there were a couple things that happened to me personally, and I remember the final time, even after I found out she cheated, I stayed with her for another 6 months. I actually gave money that I had gotten from an inheritance from my grandma. I got a house and a few dollars, and I gave her like $2,000. You could send checks out from the computer in there, money orders to people. It cost $5 charge from the email system in the feds, and I sent money to her mom so she could go to the methadone clinic. And she'd show up at visits, and I spotted it one time. I licked my finger, touched her arm. She had makeup on her arm, covering up track marks. Everything I put my mom through, I understood it all of a sudden. All the times my mom didn't sleep at night for probably years straight, worrying to death, everything else. Because as awful as she was, I still held on to that illusion of the fakeness of this whole thing that I had built up in my head. Completely crazy stuff. And the final day, we had a visit the day before. I kept calling to make sure she got back, because I'm paranoid people are going to get in a car wreck, you know, and die. So I called about 20-30 times, got a busy signal. Then I heard somebody pick up, but they didn't say hello. And you can either press 1 to accept, or like there's another number you press, and it permanently blocks somebody. After a visit the next day, I got permanently blocked on the phone, and 3 sentences of a breakup letter for an email. I kicked the wall with a front kick so hard, everybody stopped what they were doing. My leg went numb. Lucky didn't break my foot or something. I mean, I kicked it so hard, everything shook. It's the hardest kick I've probably ever thrown. And I just, if in that moment, if somebody had come up to me, if anybody, you know, I went from, you know, the sadness that I'd been in for that many months, but when that was final, I kicked the wall so hard, and I was just ready for anybody, come mess with me. I don't care. First person, say something. And my buddy Boone, I talked about him. He was like a brother to me, man. When I got back to the low from the medium, he got me in his workout crew. A lot of the guys in it didn't like it because it was all black workout crew. You know, I'm a white guy in it. They don't know me, but he's like my brother. You know, nickname was Big Midget. He's funny as could be. Strong dude, but he took me up there and talked to me, and talked me down, and kept me cool. Having somebody to talk you down when you're ready to be a crash, when you're ready to say, when you get the F everything, having somebody to talk you back down, man, it can stop it from happening. There's so many people that just a few sentences. That's what I love about the comment section in these videos. There's some incredible people, you know, on here in the comment section that really help out a whole lot. With somebody that's down, somebody mentions they're going through it, trying to get off something. Just a simple few messages back and forth can walk somebody back off the ledge. And Boone did that for me, you know, because I was ready to go do that too. But there were a number of other people you'd see it with. You'd see the toughest, hardest guys that you ever seen in your life crumble because of a woman. And I actually read a book that, you know, I heard that from, and I personally saw it. I read books that I could identify with, that I can relate to. Like, there's a guy named Roy Shaw. Roy Shaw was, oh man, he's a legend over in the UK. He was a bare knuckle boxer. Him and Lenny McLean had some epic fights. It's old. If you're into old history stuff, look up some stuff about Roy Shaw. His book's incredible. Short, but he is jacked, and he'd smash everybody. He was kind of like, you know, Tyson type build, the short and stocky, and he'd knock everybody out. But in his book, he said it. He said it the same thing that I'm saying right now, that the hardest, toughest men you ever see will crumble to pieces, wither away, when they find out somebody doesn't want them anymore. They've got somebody new. If they find out they got somebody new, oh man, you see the toughest men on the planet, just it's hard to explain because I saw it so many times. You'd see some people who always had a smile, always cutting up, cracking up, to just everywhere you saw them, they just had no life left in them. Yeah, so, but Stevie, that one bothered me. He'd worked his way all the way down from a USP to a low security. Didn't have too many years left, I don't believe. Worked in maintenance, and he'd cut up. He was the life of it, but man, it was gone. All the fun, all the ha-ha, hee-hee, joking, keeping everybody laughing. You saw this dude die on the inside. Like, you literally saw somebody's soul leaving them to where they're not there anymore. And, you know, I'm sure somebody tried to talk to him and stuff. His situation is way worse than, you know, what I went through. I got fooled by basically a hustler. It's hard to tell, you know. But he had a wife that he'd been with for, like, his whole life. Like, since he was, like, 16. And then his cellmate. Somebody you become, like, brothers with your cellmate. You got to. I mean, you got to have, if you don't have a good cellmate, time's going to seem like it goes by 10 times slower. And they were best friends. You saw them together, they, like, everywhere, cutting up, laughing. And for this guy to betray him like that, You know, oh Lord. But yeah, Jody's a mother, and people talk about it. When I first got to prison, I bet got in a couple fights when I first got there because I would get myself in conversations I shouldn't have been having in the first place, which I've learned with age and just time that if you're trying to tell somebody something, they're trying to argue with you, telling you something that's upsetting you, don't have that conversation. Get away from that person. And I found myself in this dumb conversation with this fella who went by Turbo. Turbo's an Asian fella, had long hair, always in a ponytail, and he trained a little MMA, and we'd become a little friend, you know, training some of that. His training he didn't hold up for, he had a situation happen to him where he got put out, which is a wild one. But anyway, somehow I end up in this conversation, and the alcohol was a big part of it too. I'm going to say that right now. I say drugs, gambling, punks. That was the 3 rules I was told. Alcohol falls in the drug category. That's why I got in many fights as I did the first 6 months, and I didn't the rest of the time because, you know, like drink, cut up, and fight. Wasn't angry drunk, nothing like that. It was just, you know, at the time, if somebody says something like, you know, I got to say I probably was a little bit angry. I was angry that I went to prison after I did good, after I made newspapers for doing good with the community and all this different stuff, and they still gave me the time they gave me. I was an upset kid, you know. And but I got in this conversation with him and the other people. It was a 4-man cubicle right across the hall from mine. See, I had a 2-man cell, 7-foot high cubicles. Right across was his cubicle, which had 4 foot high, so you could see right over top of it. And I'd go hang out with him. It was a guy from Virginia, a guy from Tennessee. You know, the guy from Virginia actually got a terrible sentence. He got 20 years for 8 ounces of ice, for 8 ounces of crystal. He got clemency. It took it down to 13 years, so that's good. But man, the first time he held his baby was at his sentencing. He didn't understand mandatory minimum. He thought, oh, it's just what the charge carries. Because like when I got my state charges, it said distribution of heroin, it was 5 to 40. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to get 15 years. I've got 3 of them. Even though in the state charges it makes no sense what it carries and what you actually get. Because my lawyer sat down with me and showed me my guidelines. My guidelines were like 7 or 8 months to 15 months for a first-time offender. You know, I ended up doing like a little over a year and then getting drug court, which was very high end of the guidelines to get drug court after doing that much time. But it's the only possible way that I could have got out on bond was I was with drug court, so they knew I was being watched. But anyhow, I was in that room talking to that bunch. Oh, the other guy, the guy from Tennessee, he got out, and he was like a little 2-bit guy, but he got a connection for a crystal. Man, he got like 25 years. As crazy as can be. Got some funny stories about that dude too. He was a good. It sucks hearing that. There were a number of people you saw it with, but I got in there and I got in this conversation with them, and Turbo's the one who's instigating it, talking about it's in human nature that they can't go without doing that. She's probably out there right now doing something. I got ready to smash him, ready to just walk up, just take off on him and not quit until I felt better about it. And I somehow got in this conversation, and I've seen this happen with other people. People say, "Oh, your girl's out there," and they'll start a dialogue, and they'll get so upset they'll smash somebody. Well, that's about what happened there. I went to my room. My buddy Fox, he came by, he saw me, he saw the look on my face, and he's like, "Oh man," he says, "he's just messing around, you know, talking crap, you know, probably trying to get a rise." And he talked me down off of that because I was just sitting on my bed, just like, man, I'm gonna go hurt him. You know, it was in my head, and I've seen that happen a good number of times too. But there are people, and somebody said something to me about, like, you know, would you be out there waiting all that time? And I'm like, yes. If it's the person that I'm meant to be with the rest of my, absolutely, I'd not be cheating on somebody, regardless of how long it takes. That's person to person, different people, different ways, and different stuff like that. But this is one, just this whole thing. Jody's a mother, and it's prison slang, and oh Lord, it's hard to explain seeing some of the guys who you thought were the tough. Well, I mean, not thought, they were the toughest, hardest people, but that is like the Achilles heel. That's like the weakness. If people find that out, oh man, you better just stay away from them. And if you do talk to them, it better be, you know, in the right type of way. Simple mistakes, simple not being courteous, you know, like bumping into them, not saying excuse me, that could be enough for somebody to do more damage than you would ever believe they would do over something so simple. The extreme response with violence for the pettiest things. I've seen people for the pettiest things get the most. I saw a guy get paralyzed for a couple $100. Ticket guy, is a miscommunication. I got a story about that way down the list, but you know, he's paralyzed from the waist down. He was a kid. He was a kid. Oh man, it made me sick. I was in the back, and the warden and the other people were replaying the video of this guy getting body slammed and him being paralyzed from the waist down, and like, oh, did you see that? Like laughing about it. I mean, this kid was like a kid, as young as could be, and he got slammed over and over, suplexed into a treadmill and the indoor rec and everything else. He'll never walk again. So like the small stuff that people can get really violent for, you never know who's having a bad day. It's not like out here where somebody will just be a little rude and they'll apologize for it later. It's a different world that you've really got to be careful in, regardless of where you're at, regardless of if it's the lowest security, if it's a, you know, camp even. If somebody finds out Jody done got their girl, it can happen. People just lose it. Anyway, as a little bit of rant on that, if y'all liked it, think I earned it, press the like button. If not, that is 21 minutes 54 seconds that you'll never get back in your life. I'm still feeling rough. Haven't been sleeping. Can't hear out of my right ear. Still deaf in it. It's been rough. Have not had a lot of sleep at all for like 4 days straight. You know, just a few hours at a time, and then I'm awake and it's just like, so. But anyway, so I apologize for that. I'm a little bit lower on energy right now, so it's might not be as lively as it usually is. But anyway, if you liked it, press the like button. If not, I'm sorry. I might do another video tonight too. There's a 60 Days In, new season of it, and I got some interesting opinions on some of these people. All former convicts supposedly are the people on this 60 Days In. And yeah, I'll just say that. But I might be putting that one out tonight. You know, if I do it tomorrow, I'll probably make it an additional one. I'm not just going to do that and leave it at that. But it's wild. It's wild. You know, some of these people that act as tough as they can, they're not even in a week, and you see them just like, like, come on, man. Anyway, if you liked it, press the like button. Y'all have a good one.